Got him.
Baby, a triple!
Oh, hit.
What's up guys, my name is Kale, and today on the King of Games, we're going to be talking about this. This is the Nexus Pro X. Woo! There is a lot of hype surrounding this blaster. We're going to cut through the BS and see if the hype is worth it. Let's get into it. Alright, so by the time this video comes out, there's probably a ton of reviews on this blaster already. But I wanted to offer a different perspective as someone who plays at a pro level at tournaments around the country and see if I'm more harsh on this blaster than maybe some of the other reviewers have been. So let's get some first impressions, starting with what comes in the box. This box pretty much looks just like the Nexus Pro, Conquest, and any other Adventure Force releases that we've seen from Dart Zone. That being said, because it's Adventure Force, it's a Walmart exclusive. There's a lot of information on this box that we're going to go over in just a second here, but now let's see what's inside it.
Nani?
Just kidding, I already took everything out because that's how we test everything.
Bruh.
Starting with the blaster itself. This right here is the base blaster, exactly how it comes assembled out of the box. It does come with this AFG, or angled foregrip, a full length of Picatinny rail, a buffer tube stock, what appears to be an AR compatible grip, dual magazine releases, a safety, trigger, side Picatinny rail on both sides, which appears to be attached to M-LOK. We've also got a really sleek design, and what's cool is that this print is textured. It looks like it's printed on mostly flat surfaces, which makes me think this is based off the printing technology of the Jurassic Pro. I do love that Dart Zone will go back and expand on some of its previous techniques and ideas, and this is definitely one of those situations where they've improved upon that process. It also comes with one front iron sight, one faux hollow scope, there's no glass in the middle, comes with its own stock to attach to the buffer tube, not one, but two of these 12-round magazines. This injection molded SCAR, I've heard a lot of people calling these BCARs, which is for printed, but maybe MCAR would be the more proper term, injection molded, or just molded. This BCAR, or bearing SCAR, 24 of these AF Pros, an extra O-ring for the dart gate, this Picatinny attachment, which allows you to put either one of the rifling attachments on, as well as an additional place here, which is not the barrel itself, where you can store it. This is the barrel. And an included pair of safety glasses. And these are not the Dart Zone ones we're used to seeing. This is a brand new one, especially for this release. I love that for us. And all of this retails for $50 US, just like the original Nexus Pro.
Hey, that's pretty good.
In terms of ergonomics, this blaster feels pretty good. Even though this angled foregrip isn't my personal preference, I do think it's very comfortable. Same thing with the grip, very comfortable, very ergonomically friendly. Everything feels smooth and narrow where it should and thick where it needs to be.
What do you mean by that?
I like the color separations on here, faux carbon fiber situation here.
Carbon fiber. Carbon fiber.
One thing I'm noticing right off the bat is the height over bore is quite extensive. The barrel is all the way down here, and the rail is all the way up here. With the Omnia, that annoyed me a little bit. We'll see if that's the same here. I also noticed that they're changing mag types again. So we'll see how that goes when we get into mag compatibility. And of course, this comes with only half dart magazines because once again, Dart Zone is showing that they're all in on half length. No prime slop off the bat, so obviously there's a benefit there. But when I think about it, even though the Nexus Pro had a prime slop from being half length and full length compatible, the Dart Zone Pro Mark 1.2 was both half length and full length compatible and didn't have prime slot. So it's not that they couldn't have done it. The Aeon Pro X comes with the same mag but purple, which, let's be honest, would go pretty hard in this. Regardless of what color it is, I do really like the texture of this mag and that it's translucent. The mag release situation is a little interesting. If you press this lever right here, usually designed for your offhand, you can grab and pull the mag out. This one right here is actually a pull tab to release the magazine with your trigger hand. I'm not sure how I feel about the pull mechanism. I wish they could have figured a way to make that a little flick. I think that's more natural. But it is cool that they've provided some options. One other interesting area is this buffer tube stock situation. Yes, you can pull off this buffer tube stock and replace it with another buffer tube stock. But something I've been noticing Dart Zone doing lately is including a square peg inside here, which means that this actually wouldn't be able to lock in to a standard buffer tube. And the thing is, with standard buffer tubes, they actually have a circular peg, which means this, although it could be slided on there, it'll never stay on there. Huh? And this isn't something that they're just now doing. It's just something I've not really mentioned or thought to try before, and realized that, well, it's an issue, which is a shame because I actually really like this stock. And although I've noticed it before, I think that's why this is the first time I'm really kind of mentioning or complaining about it. Because this is the first time I've seen a stock where I'm like, yeah, I want to use this on a bunch of stuff that isn't just Dart Zone related products. Because if you do it on Dart Zone related products, like the Omnia, it also still has that square peg. While we're in here, just so you guys know, you can also, just as easily as the original, swap springs by undoing a screw right here and then twisting this cap off. However, it is not compatible with the previous caps, which means you can't use the cap from the old Nexus Pro, and you can't use adjustable or dedicated tuning caps like the ones on Out of Dart's website or the one made by 3D Printed Solid.
Oh, man.
But the community tends to jump on these situations kind of quickly, and I expect we'll see some ones dedicated for this in the near future. There are also 5 different positions that you can place the stock on. The stock itself is very sleek, and it has this cool little compartment that comes off for storage of items. If I remember correctly, Dart Zone recommends that you actually put your O-ring in here, but they did release recently a spring upgrade kit, which also comes with some spacers that they designed, and I'm pretty sure they're going to fit in here. Mine should be in any day now, so if it does, I'll update you in the comments. Something I haven't seen anyone mentioning is the fact that they have these brass inserts right here on both sides of the stock. I'm also not 100% sure what they're for, but my hunch is that these are eerily similar to the size you'd find on a QD sling mount, just like the one you'd find on the stock of the Worker Harrier. Now this blaster is very similar in size to the original Nexus Pro, like pretty much the exact same size, but it boasts an extra 50 FPS. So now it's time to go take this thing over the chronograph and see if that's true. With the included dart and no scar, we got a high of 202 FPS, a low of 196 FPS, an average of 199.8, or 200 FPS, and a spread of 6. Still with no scar, when we switch to the worker darts, we've got a high of 205 FPS, a low of 189, an average of 195, and a spread of 16. When using the included darts and the included MCAR, we got a high of 199 FPS, a low of 189 FPS, an average of 195 FPS, and a spread of 10. With the same scar but on worker darts, we've got a high of 200 FPS, a low of 172 FPS, an average of 184 FPS, and a spread of 28. Now when switching to the BCAR on the included darts, we got a high of 205 FPS, low of 187, an average of, again, 199.8, basically 200, and a spread of 18 FPS. Using the BCAR and worker darts, we got a high of 195 FPS, a low of 186 FPS, an average of 192 FPS, and a spread of 14. Now you'll notice that there are only 2 situations in which I specifically said the decimal point, 199.8. Those combinations being with the included darts with no scar and on the included darts with a scar. And though I rounded to the nearest whole FPS on all of those other numbers, I made that distinction to use the decimal point on those 2 for one specific reason. Because of 200 FPS caps. Technically, this blaster would fall in both of those configurations under, by 0.2, a 200 FPS cap. And those are the only situations where the decimal actually matters. I guess depending on how strict the event or club that you're going to is. Either way, I am impressed at the prime weight of this blaster for the performance that it's getting. And if you take out that one outlier we had with the BCAR and the included darts, this blaster actually is more powerful with its BCAR on than it is without it.
Can I get a more power, babe?
It might have been a bad dart, or it might genuinely be a consistency issue. Either way, that leads me to believe there's a possibility that this is just a tiny bit underbarreled, which means it's got mod potential. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Now that we know how hard it shoots, we need to see how accurately it shoots. And unfortunately, since I did just move to Washington, I haven't figured out the setup that we're going to be using going forward. So enjoy the hallway of my apartment, because it's the longest spot where it wasn't raining until I can figure out something better. With the exception of one outtake that I didn't catch on camera, it didn't matter whether I used the AF Pros that are included with the blaster, or the worker darts, no scar, the molded scar, or the BCAR in any combination, I would still nail every shot at 35 feet. Unfortunately, there just isn't a better spot for me to do this kind of testing at the moment, but I fully recognize that the weaknesses and strengths of these various attachments and the blaster using them aren't quite apparent at that length. Now, that definitely changes a little bit when we get to actually using the blaster out on the field. And on a variety of used and new darts, I could say that I'm generally happy with the accuracy out of either one of these attachments. Now, that's not to say it's more accurate than something like my Worker Seagull, but it's definitely way closer than it should be for only being half the price of one. Now, another area I gotta talk about is the mags. First about the mags themselves, and then about magazine compatibility. Like I said, it does come with 2 of them, and they are exactly the same as the ones that come with the Aeon Pro. But as for the mag itself, I do really like this mag, and it's clear that they've finally accepted the geometry of the Talon mag. Same catch points, basically the same feed lips. The major difference is going to be the capacity, 12 darts over 15. They've also added this nice little knurling section here in the back and in the front area, which I'm definitely a fan of, both as a person who's big on textures and an avid gym goer who just appreciates knurling on everything.
Those of you that have followed me for any length of time, you know I absolutely adore knurling.
All hail home gym coupe. I'm sure that's not the coupe you were expecting me to hail on this channel. All in all, I'm interested to see what the pricing on these things will be. Now, the size of the mag does tie in interestingly to how the mechanism for air delivery works in the blaster, and I'll touch on that in just a second. But the biggest questions I have are, what other colors are going to be available? Is it just going to be the orange and purple? And are they going to be sold separately? DartZone usually does sell the magazines for their various blasters separately, eventually. And if they do, how much will they cost? Because if the price was good enough, I could definitely see these making a splash and being the choice for a lot of players. A nice in-between between the 10-rounder worker mags and the 15-rounders. I think I mentioned it somewhere earlier in the review, but there is a significant height over bore because of where the plunger tube is. The plunger tube is up here on top of the mag well. Even though they said it wasn't really a skinny pusher, it kind of is. Basically, the plunger tube is attached to the pusher. It's all one piece, and the air delivery works kind of like a turnaround, but not really, which explains the odd shape in the extra O-ring. Now, when we get into mag compatibility, you'll see how this affects things. Of course, the blaster is compatible with its own mags, and it's compatible with the Talon mags. It's also compatible with previous generations of DartZone mags, like this Max Striker, as well as the Tryon mag. It does catch, but can be yanked out. It's also compatible with the Nerf Pro mags. And this mag, because it has the ridge right here, is not normally compatible with certain other blasters. But the ridge being where it is allows me to perfectly show off what's happening here. If I place my finger right here and then release the mag, you'll see that very little of the mag is actually being inserted. And because it's not being inserted all the way up to here, like it would on most blasters, every mag that you put in here is going to stick out further than it would in any other blaster, which makes a Coda mag almost as long as our Tamagotchi mags. But it does fit. So at the end of the day, this 12-rounder fits like a 15-rounder would in any other blaster, because where the barrel sits is so much lower. Side note, because of the fact that this is a shallow mag well, this blaster actually takes the Eagle mag, which not a lot of blasters take. Sniper build? Not for nothing, it also does fit the Seagull mag, and kind of looks sharp doing so. The X-Shot Pro long shot mag. Last but not least, we have a Unicorn mag. That one also looks sharp, and you get a gravity drop no matter which mags you're using. Now, besides mag compatibility, this thing also has a very interesting set of dart compatibility. And you're probably thinking, what do you mean? It's half dart exclusive. Well, yes, but that doesn't mean it can't fire anything else. In fact, if it has no muzzle device, it can actually fire Rival natively. That wasn't bad. And Rival has the same diameter as Mega, which means it probably fires that too, right? Right, but that's not all. The injection molded scar it comes with is very eerily similar to this worker scar over here. Looks like somebody copied their homework, but changed it a little. But it's actually less of a copy than the one from the Mark IV, which was just exactly this all the way across, but with no collet. and a little longer. This is actually different. Different amount of lines for rifling, different angle, different amount of twist, different material, and the cullet is a little different. But unexpectedly, you can actually shoot mega. I'm not sure that it was intentional, but it's definitely awesome. And of course, if you really wanted to, you could just front load a full-length dart on the field. But that's kind of obvious.
Boring.
So now that we've taken it, we've field tested it, and we've battle tested it, what are my final thoughts? Well, I really like the aesthetics. I think Dart Zone nailed this one. Home run. This is definitely a successor to the Nexus Pro. There's little features sprinkled pretty much everywhere. Even on this grip, there's a little roller to get this thing to prime more smoothly. And prime smoothly it does. One thing I will say is that the spring in this blaster is very long. It sits from here all the way to here. In fact, it's longer than my Worker Swift spring, which means it's also longer than the spring in the Mark IV. Now, I know that I mentioned they had some upgrade and downgrade springs coming out, but at the time I needed to bring this blaster to Maryland Mayhem, I had to get under 160 cap, and those weren't available yet. And I took a 1.6 Swift spring and put it into this blaster with no spacers, and was able to get in the 140s. Let me repeat that in case you don't understand the implications. The 1.6 spring in the Swift does 275 FPS. And in this blaster is a very light 140 FPS. Now at this point, you'd probably be wondering what I was wondering. What happens if I put this spring into a Swift or a Mark IV? That was not a good idea. Because the coil density is so much less than with the Swift springs, inside a blaster like the Swift, it needs a lot more compression, which condenses the springs permanently and has this blaster now hitting 20 FPS less with the included spring. So I definitely don't recommend going that route. But putting the 1.6 spring in here didn't cause any issues at all, because there isn't pre-compression because it's shorter. And also the coil density is higher on the Swift springs. I haven't tried this with a 1.8 to see what the results might be like, but it would be cool just to have another option that's similar to the spring in here. Maybe it's a lighter prime, maybe it's a heavier prime. That's for another video. But the real question people seeing this blaster should be wondering, is this Pro X the Springer counterpart to the Nerf Strife Pro X? And to that, I'd say yes. I have a few minor nitpicks, but overall, all of them are washed away by the price point, the performance, and the consistency. Like the next cheapest blaster that's even similar to this is the Tryon. And the Tryon is a good blaster, don't get me wrong. But this might be officially the Tryon killer. I think this blaster is for just about anyone getting into the competitive format or getting into higher powered blasters. Even if you already have something, like the many options that I have, I still think this is an excellent loner blaster. And because it comes with 2 mags, you kind of already have an ecosystem. And the mag compatibility allows it to go right into the ecosystem you already have if you have some kind of Talenoid. And since this nails the 200 FPS they claimed on Blaster Chat, Dart Zone's podcast, I expect that the promised 250 FPS from the upgrade spring is going to be pretty spot on as well. Which means this blaster will be a perfect option for things like Maryland Foam Tournament, which I was just at, Ragnar Oktoberfest, Foam Pro Tournament, and the upcoming California Foam Soft Tournament in July. But I'll save the details on that event for another time. Couple final notes are that I know you guys are wondering what the difference between these scars are that come with the Nexus and these scars that come in the upgrade pack that's sold separately on Dart Zone's website. The molded scars are exactly the same. Both are intended to slip on an exposed barrel on one side and fit into the muzzle of Dart Zone products on the other. The only real difference is in the bearing scars. They're basically both the same body. They can be inserted from the outside into blasters that have this diameter, of course, like the Nexus Pro X, or pretty much any other Dart Zone blaster that's half dart exclusive. But it also has a little fitting inside here that can be pulled out so that you can put this on the outside of an exposed 16mm outer diameter barrel, which is kind of our hobby standard. And probably one of the only bearing scar options that works with a Lynx. So, what's the difference? If you look closely, this is the one from the Nexus Pro, and this is the one with the upgrade kit. These bearings are plastic, these ones are metal. So even if you have the Nexus Pro X, there is still a reason you might want to get this upgrade kit. for the metal bearings, or just to have an extra of the same option. Either way, Dart Zone is coming out swinging in 2024. I can't wait to cover the Aeon Pro X and to see what other things they're cooking up. It's only the first half of the year, but this very well could be a contender for Blaster of the Year. Because of the price and the performance, it's going to be tough for other companies to release anything that's as good as this. That'll be doubled down even further if this thing is consistent with the downgrade spring. Because if this gets under 130 consistently, this is not only a competitive blaster, but an HVZ blaster as well. Which in my opinion puts us in direct competition with the Worker Seagull. But maybe that's a comparison for another time. The other blasters that can kind of compete in this space are going to be the X-Shot Pro Longshot, the Tryon, and the Unicorn. Anything that's more expensive than those blasters kind of has a category of its own. If you want to see me put this blaster head to head with any other blasters, like I did in my X-Shot Longshot versus my Max Striker video, then let me know down in the comments what blasters you want to see this up against. Well, that's all I have for you today, but if you like the kind of videos we've been dropping, then make sure to mag dunk that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell, so you can be notified when we do the next video. And until then, on the King of Games, have a blast. He's right in front of you, he's right in front of you.
Headshot. Headshot.